Thank you very much for this opportunity that we have tonight. With me is Adolf Mkande, the writer of the memo about Chirumanzi cultural heritage. Mr. Mkande, tell us, what inspired you to write about your childhood in Chirumanzi?
Thank you very much for that question. Growing up in Chirumanzi left a profound impact on me. The rich culture, the values of community, and the traditions I grew up with are things I wanted to preserve and share. Sharing, as you know, is caring. I felt it was important to document this part of my life, especially as modernization rapidly changes rural life.
And my next question with you is, what do you hope that the readers should take away from your memo after going through the book? What are the expectations?
I hope readers gain an appreciation for rural Zimbabwean life, the strength of family bonds, and the beauty of our traditions. For those who grew up in similar settings, I want them to feel a sense of pride and nostalgia. And for those unfamiliar, I hope they live with a deeper understanding of our culture. I also felt compelled to tackle the issue of stigma, specifically the way some people who grew up in towns tend to look down on those from rural areas. In my view, this stigma often has its roots in a kind of quiet jealousy, I would say. While town kids were glued to their TVs, watching cartoons and becoming experts on every movie ever made, rural kids were out in the real world, living the adventure, if you know what I mean. We were the creators, not spectators, building things with our own hands, navigating nature, learning life lessons firsthand. It's as if the town folks watched the show, which we were the main actors. And I've been that.
Yes. When you look at yourself today, how did life in Chirumanzi shape you who you are today? How did that shape you?
Chirumanzi taught me a lot. It taught me resilience, humility, and the importance of community. Growing up there gave me a deep sense of connection to my roots, and that shaped my values and outlook on life. The lessons I learned from elders and the way of life was structured really grounded me.
The next question, obvious, when you write such kind of things, you meet some challenges. And what were some of the challenges that you faced whilst you were writing this memo?
There were lots of challenges, but I'll just mention a few, otherwise we'll take the whole day. One challenge in particular was ensuring I captured the essence of life in Chirumanzi authentically without romanticizing it. It was also difficult to revisit some painful memories writing about the liberation struggle. It was not an easy one, that one. It was a deep, personal, and painful subject to confront, and putting those emotions into words like peeling back old scars. Each sentence stirred memories I had long buried, making it one of the most difficult parts of the writing process. Yet, it was also necessary. The liberation struggle shaped me, and capturing that in my book, though was challenging, was part of telling my story, honestly, the story of my life. Another challenging moment in writing my book came when I revisited the day my father passed away. That's in 1978. You see, I was just 10 years old at the time, and my ability to cope with such profound loss was still in its infancy. I didn't know how to grieve by that time, As I sat down to write that chapter, the emotions overwhelmed me to the point where I had to stop writing just to compose myself. You see, growing up, I was taught, like many boys in my community, that men don't cry at all. It was an unwritten rule, a belief that vulnerability wasn't something we could show. But as I've gotten older now, I have learned to unlearn that lesson. Now I allow myself to cry freely, even if it means sobbing like a child. In such times, I honor my emotions rather than suppressing them. Yes, sometimes I cry like a baby, like a little baby.
And on top of that, what has rural life in Chirumanzi changed since your childhood?
Particularly due to modernization and technological advancements. Infrastructure and education have improved tremendously, but there is also a loss of some cultural practices. While progress is important, there is a growing disconnect from our traditions, which I touched in my book as well.
Most interestingly, were there any particular traditions or experiences from Chirumanzi that you wanted to highlight in this book?
Oh yes, I wanted to emphasize the communal way of life, where everyone looked out for each other. Ceremonies like Nimbe or a communal work gathering and traditional rituals are very important parts of our culture. And I wanted to show how this shaped not just my childhood, but the communities as well.
What role did your family play in your book? And was this very significant?
My family is central to my story. In rural communities like Chirumanzi, my family extends beyond your immediate relatives. It is the community at large. I wanted to illustrate how love, support, and shared responsibility were crucial in my upbringing and the survival of the community. This communal approach to life instilled values of compassion, values of cooperation in all of us. And it shaped who I am today. Growing up in such an environment, I learned earlier on in life that success and survival were not individual pursuits, but rather a collective effort. This deep sense of interconnectedness is something I wanted to bring to light in my book, because it shows how the strength of community, bound by love and mutual support, can make all the difference.
And whilst you're writing this book, did you discover anything new about yourself or your upbringing whilst you were writing this book? Did anything reflect to you?
That's a long story, but I'll try to summarize it as much as I can. Writing this book was an incredibly reflective journey, one that allowed me to delve deeply into the roots of who I am and how my upbringing shaped my resilience and sense of identity. It wasn't just about telling my story. It was about revisiting the moments, revisiting the people and the places that molded me, and seeing how these experiences have continued to influence my life even now. In doing so, I gained a clear understanding of the quiet strength I developed growing up in rural Chirumanzi. As I write, I also found myself growing more appreciative of the simple yet profoundly meaningful life I had back in Chirumanzu. There, life moved at a slower, more deliberate pace, allowing for genuine connections, reflection, and a strong sense of belonging. Each day had a rhythm rooted in nature and the community. In contrast, between my rural upbringing and the hurried modern world became strikingly clear during the writing process. While today's society is often driven by instant gratification, material success, and relentless speed, the life I knew in Chirumanzu was centered on patience, endurance, and finding joy in those little things. Through writing this book, I was able to honor my past and discover the profound lessons it holds. Lessons that seem even more valuable in today's chaotic world.
And do you see your book as a way to preserve Chirumanzi's culture for the future generations?
Absolutely. One of my primary motivations was to ensure that the young generation understands where they come from. As we move further into a modernized world, there is a risk of losing our connection to the past, and I hope this book helps preserve those memories and traditions.
And finally, what next for you as a writer? Do you plan to continue writing about Chirumanzu or Zimbabwe culture as a whole? And are we going to see more books from you?
Now, I don't want to limit myself to any specific subject or genre when discussing the direction of my next book. I want to approach it with an open mind and allow myself the freedom to explore various themes, topics, and ideas without feeling restricted. My goal is to maintain as much flexibility as possible in order to let creativity flow naturally and take the project in whatever direction feels right at the time. This way, I can ensure that work evolves organically and remains true to the inspiration I have during the writing.
Mr. Mkande, I want to thank you for the time you've been with us this evening. To all our viewers of Mkanya TV throughout the world, we want to thank you. There is a book for you. On Amazon, you can get it. Go buy it and understand the Chirumanzu cultural values and the heritage, the picture skills of the Chirumanzu, how it preserves to ourselves and, of course, to the people of Zimbabwe. Thank you.